All right, guys, 11 o'clock. Welcome to the PC workshop. Glad to have you. And glad to have my Facebook family here. Today we're talking about keeping compliance happy. And for those of you that are playing along at home, you're missing out because you don't get the printed new contracts. So these are some of the things we're going to be going over. The 2021 contracts will be coming out at the beginning of January. Don't know when those will get uploaded into DocuSign, but we may have them as early as January 1st. And the reason I wanted to start with these today is as we look at the most common mistakes that are made with compliance, those things still exist on the new contracts. So there's not any major changes to it. So you can pull up your old buyer's brokerage agreement, listing agreement, and purchase and sale agreement and follow along there. Or for those that are here in person, you can look at next year's and you'll be able to see what's there. But before we start talking about what are the things that compliance flags and rejects, there's some things that they're not looking for that are just policies of the office that I want us to look at and talk about that cause problems and issues that tie in just perfectly with compliance. So as we look at some of those office policies, some of the things I want you guys to remember is first with your listings, okay? With your listing paperwork, everything has to be turned in within 48 hours of the client signing it, okay? Because when you do a listing, our agreement with Georgia MLS and FMLS is that we will have that into their system within 48 hours, okay? So you've got to get it to us in enough time that we can get that up. So any listing paperwork turned in before noon will go up that same day, okay? So as soon as we have it, we want to get that in. One of the things that I wanted to add to this, your listing will go up faster if in the body of the email, okay? So your listing paperwork needs to go into command, and it also needs to get emailed to Miss Ann, okay? When you do your listing, you're gonna have your listing agreement, your dual entry form, but you're also gonna have the disclosures. The seller's property disclosure, community association disclosure, the lead-based paint disclosure, the DeKalb County plumbing disclosure. Miss Ann does not need all of those, okay? You're also gonna have your wire fraud form, your water and sewer disclosure, and your advertising disclosure. They're all our office forms. Miss Ann doesn't need to have those. You still need them, they all still need to go into command, but for Miss Ann to put your listing up, she just needs the listing agreement and the dual entry form, okay? And she asks, please, 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 email me your description, your directions, your private remarks, so that she doesn't have to retype those, okay? And she can just copy and paste, okay? One other thing that I wanted to remind you guys of about listings, and definitely come to the broker's class and let's listen to what they say on this. But my expectation is, as we head into 2021, the changes they made to the listing agreement aren't quite sufficient that the broker is gonna be content. You're still gonna need to have a coming soon special stipulation, but it may look different than this year's, okay? They've made some changes on the listing agreement so that there's a space to mark for coming soon, but it doesn't make clear what you're able to do, what the seller's able to do in terms of showings. And I think the broker's gonna expect and want to see that there. So be looking for a new coming soon special stipulation. When it comes to working with buyers, okay, you should have a buyer's brokerage agreement with every buyer that you're working with, okay? But we don't need you submitting that buyer's brokerage agreement until you have a contract, okay? Compliance doesn't wanna see it, so don't hit that submit button. They're gonna look at it and they're just gonna come back and tell you, we don't need to see this yet, okay? So only submit your buyer's brokerage agreement once you have a contract. You need the document, You just don't need to submit it, okay? On your contracts, all contracts have to be submitted to the broker within 24 hours, okay? That means they need to go into Command and you need to hit the submit button. And when you submit your contracts, that is the purchase and sale agreement and all of the exhibits that go with it, okay? All of that's expected to be in within 24 hours. You are going rogue if you don't submit it to the broker. We want to review your documents. We want to make sure that you're compliant, that you're protected, that we're protected as a broker, and most importantly, that your client is protected. You know, if you've missed a signature, you've missed a document that needs to be part of that contract, and it ends up costing your client their earnest money, you're not gonna be happy with that. Your client's not gonna be happy with that. So let us double check your paperwork and make sure that you've got everything in there that you need. So timeliness is better on that. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
So, when, under contracts, like, I feel like when I go to put it in there, then it's asking for everything, instructions to closing attorney and all that mess, but do I just put the basics in there, submit it, and then do the other later?
Absolutely.
Because
Put
I feel
in
like
what
they've
you
come
have.
back and said, well, we still need all that, and it's like, well, I know you need all that,
And
but,
that's perfectly okay.
okay,
If you don't have the instructions to closing attorney, is your client not protected?
no,
No, that's just something we know the attorney's gonna have to define it, and we don't have a way to come back and check 3 weeks from now, 15 days before closing, and go, by the way, Kim, don't forget about the instructions to closing attorney, okay? So as soon as you submit it, we're gonna say, hey,
gotcha. And
here are
that's-
the things that you're gonna need to get pulled together and put in there, but they don't just look in there and go, oh, she doesn't have the instructions to closing attorney, we don't need to look at anything
So
else.
that made me think I needed to wait for everything.
No,
Okay,
put it all in there, cause we go ahead and we look at that contract, and we
Gotcha.
make sure, is the contract good? Are the exhibits good? Are we missing a date? Are we missing a signature? Let us look at that now. We don't wanna go back and fix that 3 weeks from now.
Right.
After we've done an amendment to address concerns, and we're outside of due diligence, and all, let us look at it quick. Great
Okay,
question.
another question then, on
Yeah.
listing agreement, when you say 48 hours, okay, if we get it like on a Friday night, are we good until Monday morning?
Yeah.
Okay, so weekend doesn't count, or even if it does, it's okay?
Even if it does, it's okay,
Okay.
cause nobody's working to put it up. Just say 48 hours or the next business day.
Gotcha,
How's
okay.
that? So even if Monday were Labor Day, you'd be fine turning it in on Tuesday.
Okay.
Just make sure that you've communicated with your client, this will go live on Tuesday,
Right,
okay? Or you always have the option of putting the listing in the system yourself, okay? You can go log into Georgia MLS and create your listing. You can go log into FMLS and create your listing. You've got the authorization to do that. It's just extra work for you. We do it for you, as a service to our agents, okay? But you can go put your own in. The only thing we ask is when we put your listing in, we know what went in the system matches what's on the paperwork. If you put it in, we don't know as a broker that what you put in matches what's on the paperwork. And we're not gonna go through and check it line by line. So when you go look in your opportunity, you'll see where it's got the signed MLS printout, signed Georgia MLS printout, signed FMLS printout. We want your client not only to sign the listing paperwork, but also sign a copy of the listing that you put in, so that they're saying, yes, it's okay for Kim to market this property this way. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Awesome. Alright, so then with the contract still, so we need to have it in the system and submitted within 24 hours. We want you completing the offer tab and the commissions tab within 48 hours. Okay? And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, selfish on our end, okay? We wanna be able to better manage our business, okay? and your sale doesn't show up in any of our reports, any of our projections, until you do the commissions tab, okay? That's where the numbers get pulled in. So when you submit your contract, all it goes to is compliance. Compliance doesn't have anything to do with managing the business, they're just looking to see, do we have a legally compliant contract? Well, we wanna run our business too, and as your coach, this is how you show up on my reports. So if you have a contract, you don't do the offer tab and the commissions tab, I may not know that you have a contract. Compliance saw a contract, but me, you don't show up in my reports of, here's the contracts that these agents are working on. So I can't follow up and check up with you and say, hey, how are things going with due diligence? Looks like it's about the end. We have our amendment to address concerns. Looks like you've got closing next week. You know, have you talked to the lender? I've got no notice that I need to follow up with you, okay? Because I wanna be there and help you through that whole process. All right, so get that offer tab and commissions tab done. Okay, does that make sense? All right. And any amendments need to be uploaded as soon as they're completed, you know, within 24 hours. So you do an amendment to address concerns, everybody needs to know about it. It needs to go in command and get submitted to the broker, it needs to go to the lender, it needs to go to the attorney. You know, the one that often gets overlooked is getting it to the broker. They'll send it to the lender. The last little note is if on one of those amendments, we change the closing date, and it's gonna push that closing to another month, we ask you to let Miss Ann know, because she tracks and helps us make sure that we don't wanna get to the end of the month when we have to close our books out, and we think that there's a closing sitting out there for you, and we're gonna be chasing you down, calling you, texting you, emailing you, hey, we haven't gotten the closing paperwork for that house that was closing on the 30th. You know, we can't close our books and do any more DAs, write any more checks until we know everything that closed this month was received and processed. So the whole business will screech to a halt if we're looking for a closing that hasn't closed yet. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. So, earnest money has to be turned in immediately. This is not a broker rule, this is a state rule. Greg says all to the broker the next business day. So don't be driving around holding a check. Check, it needs to be turned in. And that doesn't matter if there's a contract or there's not. You can't be holding clients' earnest money. Not protected there. It needs to be in our escrow account or in our locked file cabinet here. So make sure you bring it in, you put it on an orange sheet, you put it in the Dropbox, okay? If you can't come in, have your client come in and drop it off. You still need to fill that form out. You can do that in command and have it sitting there so that when Miss Elisa gets the check, she can print that form from your command and she can attach it and put it in the Dropbox. Make sense? All right. The alternative is we now have earnnest.com. Okay, and so they have the chance to do an ACH online and pay for it that way. Okay, that way nobody has to come in. And that's a pretty easy system to do. When there are terminations, okay, we need to know contracts that terminate. Okay, just because you sign the paperwork, we're still expecting a close. We're still chasing you down. We still have compliance looking at it. We still show it as a potential a sale in our system. We need to know when they terminate. Those are expected to be turned in within 24 hours, okay? And if it's a listing of yours, we don't know to put your listing back active if you haven't given us the termination. So we want those within 24 hours. And we often are holding the earnest money and we need to release the earnest money. Well, we need to submit that to Susan Payne so that she knows to work on that earnest money. So all terminations need to not only go in command, but get emailed to Susan, okay? At assistantmca292@gmail. Any questions about that? All right, DAs, okay? DAs are a courtesy. We don't have to pay you guys at the closing table, but we want to pay you at the closing table. And as an agent, I want to get paid at the closing table. So, but we can't just snap our fingers and issue you a DA, okay? The main provisions of getting a DA is, one, your opportunity has to be in compliance. Everything has to be approved. We're not gonna issue a DA if you've not put your stuff in, you have not answered compliance's questions, and we've got all green check marks in there. The second thing is, you've gotta give us enough time to create it. We get a lot of calls from people asking us to create DAs at the last minute. Well, there's a process, you know. Susan has to go in, check, make sure everything that's in compliance. She's gotta pull all the numbers, she's gotta create the form, she's gotta send the form to the broker's gotta sign it, and then she has to email it to you, okay? That takes us a day or two to get through that whole process, because, we're still running a business. We just can't drop everything we do every time one of our 300 agents needs a DA. It's important to us, can't stress that enough, we want you paid. But that's the reason getting your stuff turned in on time gives you plenty of time to get everything through compliance. You know, we ought to be 15 days before closing, and we know everything looks good, okay? There shouldn't be a scramble to try and fix stuff at the last minute just to be able to get our DA, okay? And then your request from the DA, try and make it 10 days before closing, okay? That gives us plenty of time to fit it in when we can fit it in, because we've got 10 days to work on it. But we won't issue them if it's less than 3 days prior to closing, okay? That has typically been calendar days, but really I want you guys to think of that as business days, because if you turn it in on a Friday expecting to get it on Monday, probably not gonna happen, okay? So think of that as 3 business days. Any questions about DA?
What about isn't there something where y'all can do like ACH where we don't even get the paper checks or something?
Not right now.
Okay.
That may be something that comes in the future.
Okay.
And then closings. All closing paperwork and checks must be turned into the office within 24 hours. So you go to closing and think of that, 1 business day. You close on a Friday, you turn it on Monday, we're not gonna be upset about that, unless Friday was the last day of the month, okay? Again, we have to close our books down and process every closing out at the end of every month. So if we're on the last couple of days of the month, we ask you to do everything in your power to get it to us the same day, even if it means coming in and dropping it in after hours, okay? Because we often at the end of the month work evenings, work weekends, just to make sure everything processes through quickly, because we want to get back to being able to write DAs and write checks as quickly as possible. Okay, make sense? All right, so now let's take a look at what are the most common mistakes actually made on the contracts that get turned in. So where are agents screwing things up? And what we're gonna start with today is the buyer's brokerage agreement. And really we're only looking at three documents today, which coincidentally are the 3 most common documents that you're gonna use in your real estate career. Your buyer's brokerage agreement, your listing agreement, and your purchase and sale agreement. And you would think as often as we would use them, we wouldn't make many mistakes on them. But as you're gonna see here, we make a lot of very simple mistakes very frequently, because all of this material came to me from compliance. This is what compliance agents are telling me that they have to correct more than anything else. So in section 1, on page 1, where it says that this is an agreement between parties, the agents will put their name, not the broker's name, okay? Well, actually, it's not even on page 1, it's on page 8. So, but agents fill in their name instead of the broker's name. The start and end date have to be filled out. And so you'll see the term this agreement shall begin on the date of and continue through the date of, okay? There has to be an end date. So John Smith wants to hire you today and, you know, he's not in a hurry, he doesn't care how long it's gonna take. You can't just say we're gonna start today and leave it open-ended, okay? Give yourself 12 months, give yourself 6 months, but we have to have both a start date and an end date on the contract, okay? Number 3, the independent contractor box is not marked. Why does that on page 1?
No, this is already changed, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the
Cause
new
number
one.
1 usually has blanks on it.
Yeah. So we don't have to worry about. Well, good, well, that box is gone. So you guys aren't going to screw that one up anymore. Good. Alright, but the one that you will continue to screw up is, number 4. It's now paragraph 3. It's agency and brokerage, okay? And on the buyer's brokerage agreement, it says the following types of agency are not offered by the broker. Lots of agents say it's the buyer's brokerage agreement, so they check buyer's agency. That's the wrong answer, okay? We need to be marking that we don't offer dual or sub-agencies. So the dual and the sub need to be marked. And you will see there's a new little section on the new contract that addresses dual agency. So the box that you're gonna want there is does not, okay? Just make it your default mark. Buyer does not consent to the broker acting in a dual agency capacity, okay? We don't allow it, but we're also telling the buyer to not allow it. You have a question?
Now, when we, like, if I'm the listing agent, but the buyer wants me to work as them as a customer,
Okay.
that's why it's not dual agency, right? Because they're
That's
not
correct.
both my client.
They're not
One
both
is a
your
client,
client.
okay.
And in that case, if the buyer's working with you as a customer, this is not the right
Right,
form.
right, yes.
It's gonna be the
That's true.
authorization to
Right.
work with buyer as a
Yeah,
customer, okay? And it clearly defines it. This is the form we use when they're working with you as a buyer, okay? The other mistakes that they make in here, the broker information is not filled out, okay? Now, I will add in here that the commission, most everybody remembers to fill the commission in, but very often they will forget to mark shall or shall not pay the difference. And I strongly encourage everyone, mark shall pay the difference. You can always forgive that later, and if you need scripts or help on presenting that, get with me and we'll have a conversation about that. But you don't wanna mark shall not pay the difference, or you might find yourself working for a client, for no commission, because the seller's not offering a commission, okay? We don't want that happening. But the big mistakes that we see probably more than anything else is actually on the signature page. To where for the broker's information and for the buyer's information is not fully filled in, okay? And the buyer's information on our brokerage agreements has to be filled in, okay? The thing to remember is, and this is the hit by a bus rule, okay? This is an agreement between the client and the broker, okay? You're the broker's authorized licensee, okay? If something happens to you, you get hit by a bus, okay? You get sick, you disappear, you have to travel out of town, whatever the reason is, this is still agreement between the broker and the client. And we as the broker need to know how to get hold of them, and they need to know how to get hold of us, okay? So everything on this page has to be filled in, okay? That's different than the contract. On the contract, the agent on the other side of the contract does not need to know how to get hold of my client. The party on the other side, the buyer or the seller in that section, does not need to know how to my client. They just need to know how to get hold of me, okay? So, and you need to fill out all of the broker's information and make sure that you are using the broker's full name. Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Partners. If ever you get audited, every time you have abbreviated or miswritten the broker's name, that's $150 fine. Okay? So I don't want you guys paying fines for that.
How-
So,
When we are the listing agent.
Yep.
And the buyer gives us a purchase sell agreement and doesn't write that correctly, do we need to change that? Are we responsible for that, or does it matter on the
You
purchase
should,
and sell?
and it's informational, so that's something that doesn't fundamentally change the contract. So that change doesn't have to be initialed by the buyer and the seller, okay? It's just like if they misspelled your name, that doesn't need to be signed by the buyer or the seller. You can just make that correction on there and send it back. Okay, great question. The only thing that I give you guys my blessing not to fill in on the broker's information, don't put the fax number in there, okay? We do not want people communicating with us by fax, okay? So leave that out. Couple other things, they will hold your contract back, they will not pay you, okay? They will not release your check if you don't have the license number, the brokerage address, the MLS office number, and the license number in there, okay? We want to pay you, so please get this stuff right. And a lot of agents aren't signing it before they send it in, okay? You are the one that signs this for the broker, and it's really easy in the process. We've sent it over to the other client, and we're all excited because they signed it and they sent it back. And we're just forgetting that we need to go back and sign it, okay? It's not that you didn't think you had to sign it, you just forgot, and you just grabbed the file and you uploaded it. Double check it, make sure it's got your signature on it, or compliance is gonna send that back to you, okay? And that's it for the buyer's brokerage agreement. So we're gonna go over to the listing agreement now, and, take a look, also referred to as the exclusive seller brokerage agreement. That, no. So, and the most common things that we're gonna see in here, and some of these sections may be wrong, now, but the legal description not being filled in, okay? By state law, you do not have a binding contract without a legal description. When someone executes this contract, the property they're buying is not the property with this address. It's not that MLS number, it's not that tax ID number, they are buying the legal description, okay? So you have to have a legal description on your contract, okay? Number two, the listing period has to have a beginning and an end, okay? And now, I will tell you, there is not 2 dates, there is a 3 dates that have to be filled in. There is, when does this agreement go into effect? When do I now represent them as an agent? When can I start marketing the property as coming soon? Okay, that's when this agreement starts. When is it marketed to the public, which is the date that it's gonna go active, and when does it end? Okay. So that's the adjustment I was alluding to earlier, where they've started to address coming soon and made some modifications. But what they haven't done is made it really clear what you can and cannot do during that time period between when this goes, when this agreement starts, and when the marketing to the public starts. So make sure we've got start, end, and our on the market date. The list price must be filled in, okay? Typically, when you go to your listing appointment, you should know everything that needs to be filled in on this contract except for the price. And so you may have a great conversation with your client at the listing appointment, got them to agree, we're gonna market at this price, got them to sign the agreement, but we forgot to fill in the list price. Have to fill in the list price. They are giving us permission to market that property at a certain price point. Okay, that has to be there. The commission, on paragraph 4, it says 6A, it's now 4A and 4B. the commission has to be there. What is the total commission that's being paid to us as the listing broker? And then how much are we paying to the other side? Okay, that has to be filled in. Something that is new this year is when you go to page 2, there is a little clause in here for, if there's any adjustments under certain situations, okay, that the commission would be different, okay? So, and this could be a case of, you stepped into a transaction when a buyer's already been identified. You could put in here, if this buyer buys the property, the commission would be this. You've seen listings out there where it says, if the listing agent has to show the property, the cooperative commission would be this. That's where you have to specify that. You can't offer another agent any commission other than what's on that first page in paragraph 4B, unless it shows an exception in here. Your seller has to agree to whatever it is that you offer. Okay, that's part of the package. Does that make sense? Can I get a yes?
Yes.
Alright.
Would we want to do that, like, now that that's a new thing, I mean, or whatever would,
I don't think so.
okay,
But they're just making it easier for the ones that do. It kind of feels slime ballish to me,
yeah,
you know, but if that's a revenue source for you, okay. You know, I'm not gonna tell you not to. If you're building your business, your brand, you know, me, I don't necessarily like that. You know, cause that's not, opening a door up is not what we're earning our commission for, right? So for me to tell a buyer's agent, you're gonna lose 2/3 of your commission because I had to open the door, that seems really silly. Does that make sense? Alright, next one, the independent contractor box is not checked off, and it looks like the independent contractor box is gone. Yay, alright, they finally figured out that all of us are independent contractors. Good, so we're not gonna have to deal with that, but we do have the agency, okay? We still, on this document, just like the buyer's brokerage agreement, we mark dual and sub is what we do not offer. Not that we're offering seller's agency. And it clearly says in the box, where people check the box without reading it, it says the following are types of agency relationships not offered by the broker, okay? So we're gonna mark that dual and sub are not offered, and then they have the additional line in there this year that says seller does or does not consent to broker acting in a dual agency capacity. You're always gonna mark does not, okay? Particularly because we as a broker don't allow it. So there's no reason for your client to agree to dual agency because you can't do dual agency, okay? Other common mistakes, on paragraph 8, well, that's page 8. Actually, in paragraph 8, I know because I've seen this a lot of times, where it says seller does or does not authorize broker to assist. Make sure you've gotta have one of those 2 boxes checked, okay? It's saying, can you as the agent fill out a contract for your client? You know, yes or no. What do you think the answer usually should be?
yes,
Yes, you know, the seller does give us the authority to fill out contracts on their behalf. But we have the same issues on page 8, when we get back here, that they're not fully filling in the seller's information and the broker information. They're not using the broker's full name, okay, Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Partners. They're not putting in the license number, brokerage ID, MLS number, and license code. And they're forgetting to sign the listing agreement, okay? They wrote it all out, but they didn't sign it. They got their client to sign it. They came back all excited, scanned it in from their appointment, but they never put their signature on it, okay? So we wanna make sure that you do that. Alright, next one, purchase and sale agreement. This is the fun one. This is what we actually get paid for. So, we wanna make sure everything in here is right. And we have to have a legal description. you can't have a binding contract without a legal description, so don't leave that blank, okay? You should easily be able to find at least the deed book and page and go with option number 3. That's not too difficult. Number 5, the holder of the earnest money, okay? The issues they're having here is they're not putting the right holder in there, okay? You put that the closing attorney is holding the earnest money, but then the earnest money gets turned in here at the office, okay? You have to make sure you understand that whoever is listed as the holder of the earnest money is who's going to get the check, and that's who the check will be made out to, okay? And if it is the attorney, and it says right in here, okay, and they realigned everything this year, so paragraph 5 and 6 aren't beside each other, they are above each other, and I think it's because so many people kept overlooking this issue right here, okay? But it says right here in parentheses, if holder is closing attorney, F10 must be attached to this exhibit, and F511 must be signed by the closing attorney, okay? The F511 is not attached to the contract. We attach the 510. The 511 is gonna come 2 to 5 days later when we get the closing attorney to sign it, okay? We've gotta follow the timelines and the instruction that are on the 510 and 511, but the 510 has to be listed as one of our exhibits on our exhibit page, making it be attached. So when we get back to page, what is it gonna be, 7, that has all of our exhibits? Yep, page 7 has all of our exhibits. You have to list the 511 as one of your exhibits, and it's already pre-filled out. You just need to check the box and put your letter in there, okay? But those must be included. Lead-based paint, paragraph 9, often overlooked. The nice skinny little paragraph in here, we have to mark, legally required to mark whether it was built before 1978 or not, okay? So double check and make sure that box. And one of the things that will help you with this is you'll see a lot of these mistakes are not that they were filled in wrong. A few of the problems have been they're filled in wrong. It's that people forgot to fill them in. So go through and count through this first page. There's 11 different paragraphs on this first page. So did I fill 1 in? Did I fill 2 in? Did I fill 3 in? Did I fill 4 in? That will help you make sure, count to 11, I didn't miss anything, okay? Next section, 10A and 10B. The issue here is not that people aren't filling it in, it's that they're filling it in incorrectly, okay? So the 2 most common errors that we see are, one, when we have an unrepresented buyer or an unrepresented seller. So we're working with a for sale by owner, or an agent buyer called us on our listing, and they don't have an agent and they wanna make an offer on the property, okay? Well, in both of those cases, they should have a customer relationship with us. So for the buyer, we're gonna have an authorization to show, we're gonna have a customer agreement, okay, authorization to work with buyer as a customer. And with the seller, we're gonna have an authorization to show unlisted property. We have to have one of those signed, but then we mark them as a customer on the document, and Keller Williams Atlanta Partners goes on both sides, okay? And that whole brokerage name has to be spelled out. So it's Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Partners, working with the seller as a client, Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Partners, working with the buyer as a customer, or vice versa, okay? One's a client, one's a customer. But what a lot of agents have been doing is they're like, well, they don't have an agent, so we put NA for the broker. No, it's not NA. You are still representing them on that other side. You're just doing it as a customer, not as a client relationship, okay? Does that make sense? They're on every contract, you are always gonna have a broker on both sides, period. Always a broker on both sides. And if there's only one agent in the transaction, it's our broker on both sides. We just can't have both of them be client relationship. Okay, so there's two options. If it says Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Partners on one side and Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Partners on the other side, one's a client and one's a customer, or there's two agents in the transaction, and that's gonna be designated agency, okay? But where a lot of agents have been screwing up is that just because it's Keller Williams on both sides of the transaction, is it designated agency? No, okay? So one side's Keller Williams Realty Chattahoochee North, the other one's Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Partners. Both of those are client relationships, okay? It's only when both agents work for the same broker under the same broker license number. So in our case, if both agents work for Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Partners, it could be different offices. It could be the Sugarloaf office, could be the Stockbridge office, could be the Noonan office. But if both of us work for Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Partners, it is designated agency. And that's when you fill out the little box that says, Trey Hunt has been designated to work with the seller and John Smith has been designated to work with the buyer. Okay, does that make sense?
That's what
Yes.
my offer's gonna be,
Good,
yeah.
that's fun stuff.
Different office, but same number, so, okay.
All right, in section 7, common mistakes in here. This is where our exhibits are. Agents aren't marking their exhibits, okay? Sometimes they're leaving it completely blank. The other mistake they make is they put the letters in, but they don't mark the check boxes. Guys, I cannot stress enough how important throughout your contract check boxes are, okay? Because it says up here that anything not checked isn't part of the contract in different places, and only what's checked is, okay? So we have to check it, okay? But then we also have to identify it, okay? So the all cash exhibit is part of the contract. Well, which all cash exhibit? There could be 10 of them floating out there. Well, it's the one marked exhibit A, okay? So I need to go look for exhibit A. That just legally, that's how we tie the two together. So if the checkbox is not marked, it's not part of the contract. And if it is part of the contract, we need to identify it. And that's the other place that there are mistakes, is it will say that the FHA exhibit is exhibit A, but then you go get the FHA loan exhibit, and at the top of it, it says is exhibit B, okay? The letters you use here have to match the letter that's on the top of your exhibit. And I know that's really simple and really basic, but we just see that happen all the time, that agents are mismatching. It just means that we're moving too quickly and we're not paying attention to details. And it's gonna cost you time. It's easier to do it right the first time than it is to have to go back and redo it and get your client to initial. And what does that do for your perception with your client when you have to go back and get them to initial a simple correction, okay? It makes you look less confident. And then on page 8, same issue as before. You've gotta fill in the broker's information, okay? Don't have to fill in the client information. You need their name in there, but we need the broker's full name and then all of your other information. A couple other details. We do need to make sure that we get the binding agreement box filled in. We do not care which agent does it, but the version that you submit to the market center, that box needs to be complete, okay? And it should be the same version that both agents have. The other thing is, if it's wet signed, okay, somebody put ink on paper, make sure you're getting the date on there, okay? Electronically signed, we're getting electronic timestamps on it, okay? And if you're using DocuSign makes it really simple. When you drop that signature in there, drop the box that says date signed that's right beneath it, and it'll automatically put a date in there, okay? Which looks really nice. But if you're getting wet signatures, and this is especially true for initials, make sure that you're getting the date along with it. Some little miscellaneous things with the purchase and sale agreement. strike through an initial is allowed to make modifications to a purchase and sale agreement as an offer or a counter offer. But once you have an accepted counter offer form, okay, the modification, or the counter offer or modification to original unaccepted offer, once one of those exists and has been agreed to, you cannot go back to the original contract and strike through an initial. That purchase and sale agreement gets frozen in time, okay? Last few things in general, okay? Changes made to a signed document, okay, must be initialed and dated by all parties, okay? So anything that needs to be changed, get both parties to involve, the buyer and the seller, and if there's more than one buyer, all the buyers have to sign it, initial it and date it. More than one seller, all the sellers need to initial and date. Can't just be one. Corporate signatures, okay? On corporate signatures, they want the name of the company, the person's name that's signing it, and their title, okay? That's what the broker's looking for. So the signature itself will be the person's name, okay? When Tim Cook signs a contract for Apple, okay, he doesn't sign it Apple Inc. He signs it Tim Cook, but below it, it's gonna say Tim Cook, President, Apple Inc. Okay. Signature of two separate individuals can't be combined as one. Don't know who's done this, but there have been people that have created a signature for John and Jane Smith, and it's one signature, okay? We have to have independent signatures. John has to sign it, Jane has to sign it. There's not a combined signature that could be done. And the name that goes on the contract, the name that you are signing things with, needs to be the same name that's on your real estate license, okay? Can't use your nickname, can't use your formal name if it's different than what's on your license. The only name you should be signing with is the same one that Georgia recognizes as being a real estate licensee. Okay, when it comes to command, we've got a few issues that have been popping up. I want you guys to be paying close attention to. One is that all documents have been added to the correct folder, okay? And in the, nice bold color. So when we have our buyers, we have 3 folders. We have our consultation, our under contract, and our closing. All of your documents for a buyer go in the under contract folder, okay? And in command for your listings, you have a listing folder, an under contract folder, and a closing folder. For your sellers, your listing documents go in your listing folder. Your contract documents go in your under contract folder. And never the twain shall meet, okay? So when you're getting ready to get your listing put up, that all goes under listing. Once you get an offer on the property and you have a contract, that goes in the under contract folder. And there's pre-created slots for you to use. And we want you to use those slots for those particular documents. If you need additional slots, because for example, there's only one slot for amendments and exhibits, create additional slots, but use the one that we created for you first, okay? Resubmitting the folder when documents are uploaded or replaced. Compliance tells you there's something wrong with your folder and you put a new document in there, okay? Or You have your amendment to address concerns, you've got an amendment to change the closing date, you've got an amendment to the sales price. As soon as you put that document in, go ahead and submit it. Don't forget. Agents are putting their documents in, they're forgetting about it, and they're getting up to closing, and they're wanting to get their DA, and all of a sudden, there's 3 or 4 documents in there that compliance has never looked at, okay? And we're unable to process their DA until compliance looks at it. We want you getting paid at the closing table. So as you load documents, submit it so compliance can review them, make sure we're doing well. So, a couple other things for you to make aware of. When you have a contract terminate, okay, we're hopefully gonna continue working with that client. Well, sometimes we have the option of creating a new version, sometimes we need to create a new opportunity. And wanted to help you understand what that looks like, because agents will be getting confused here. If you have a listing opportunity and you have a contract terminate, what you cannot do is go back and replace the contract documents that were in there before, okay? That does not work. That transaction, while it never was consummated, didn't make it to the closing table, it terminated, we still have to have all those records, okay? That still happened, and we as a broker need to document. So we don't want you replacing that stuff. What you need to do is create a second version, okay? And in your command, and get with me, get with Susan, get with Stuart, we'll show you how to do this. But what you would do is you create another folder, another version that will be your under contract to, and then your closing, okay? So all your documents from your terminated contract are in here. You will have a new folder that is for your under contract, but let us show you the right way to create that. Don't assume that you know how to do it. Let's make sure when you have that situation come up that you do that. And if we do it that way, you can keep everything in the same opportunity, okay? And we're okay with that. Alternatively, you can, after a contract terminates, go create a new opportunity, okay? Move your listing documents over to the new opportunity as well, so they're still there. We just have to have a new DA number, but we like that version 2. The only caveat to that is, when we do that, you're not gonna be able to do the commissions tab. We're gonna have to do a green sheet, okay? So when you have a version 2, we have a green sheet. But this process only works on the listing side, okay? When we're on the buyer side, you have to create a new opportunity. Things didn't work out with this house. We were unable to buy this house. The contract terminated. Now we're gonna go make an offer on another property. We have to have a new opportunity, okay? Every opportunity is associated with a specific address. So unless you are making an offer on the same property, okay? You had a contract terminated, and now we're making a new contract on the same property, you can do a version 2, okay? But if you're going to look at a different house or a different property, that's a new opportunity, okay? That was the version 2. And guys, that's it. So, any questions, guys, call me, text me, email me if you've got anything you're curious about what we talked about today, want to take a closer look at anything, need to do a version 2, need me to review a contract with you before you send it to your client, send it to me. I'm here to help you guys. Have a great day.